Hello, hello, hello. Gisele Grenier here. We have a bit of a break in the temperature, so it's nice not having to wear that stupid headset. I was inspired by something I saw outside. Joe and I were outside yesterday. We're making supper. He was barbecuing some steaks, and I was having a nice drink that he made me, Bahama Mama, and he was having his beer, and we're just sitting and talking and all that stuff. And right down in between us, he was sitting across, right down between us, this dragonfly goes right by. And he goes, whoa, like, where'd that come from? And all I could see was the shimmer of his wings. So I ran to the house, I got my sketchbook, and I started making all these sketches. I made a sketch on my paper pad here. I want to do something to reflect a dragonfly. Now, I do have to admit, this took a little bit of planning because I had to plan stuff out. I'm not sure how long it's going to be, but let's get right to it. So down the table, I redid my box of buttons. So I've got my glass pieces. I took some buttons, and you'll understand where I'm going with this. This is just from a collection which I have to retop because I'm almost out of white buttons. And I took this massive piece of cardboard. I cut a piece out and then ripped it. Something like that, and just by taking the edges and just pulling and just randomly just pulling the stuff off. The canvases I'm going to show at the end what you can do with them. And then I've got some burlap, and these are little bags that I picked up at Michael's. Little bags like that. They're $1.50 for two, and I just cut them out to stuff like this, and I just pull the strings. If you do this and you have animals, make sure you throw this stuff in the garbage, because I don't know if you have a cat like my Chaos, you don't need to buy her toys. She just loves this stuff, and she's sleeping right there. All right, so cardboard, some pieces of burlap. I'll talk about this after. Okay, so the products now. I don't know if I'm going to need all of these, but I'm going to pull them out just in case. What's this one? Oh, another thing of gesso. Okay, so I'm going to prime parts of the cardboard with the Decor Media white gesso. I'm going to use matte medium as the glue. I'm not sure if the matte medium will be enough. I may have to go to the liquid glass, which I've got like this much left. Hasn't come in yet. The paints, so I'm looking at creating the background as more of a cerulean blue type of background. Now, I do have cerulean blue in the Decor Media, but depending on what brand you're using, you can make it yourself. That's more customizable. So that's what I'm going to do, because the colors to make cerulean blue are already in my limited palette. And if you need more information about my limited palette, I've got videos on my YouTube channel, and I've got a whole bunch of stuff in the community, which is linked below. So I've got the Decor Media Fluid Acrylics, Phthalo Green Blue, Phthalo Blue, Titanium White. Then I'm going to use for the wings, which I'm not sure if it's going to work, but the interference is green and violet. And then I want to bling it up with a little bit of metallics of peacock pearl and the bright brass. Yeah, that's right. The bright brass of the dazzling metallics from Decor. And then for the antenna, I'm going to use these little beads. I was thinking about using my DIY alcohol ink and staining these dark, but I kind of like the shimmer of this to give it a little bit of elegance. I also have some metal beads here. I don't know if I'm going to need those. So again, it's going to be more of the piece telling me how to create it. And I'm going to pull this down just so you can see. So this is what I'm going for, this little doodad here, something like that. So I've got my sketch, and he's missing some wings, but that's the idea of where I'm going with this. So to dry fit everything, what I'm looking at is creating a background that's going to be an L-shaped composition. And because I didn't have this long enough, I'm just going to overlap these. So I'm going to create something like that on there. Now for the dragonfly, the reason why I had to plan this out a little bit, because I had to make sure I had buttons that were the right size. So I've got these pieces of glass. As you can see why it did take a little bit of planning. I'm going for something like that. And that's not right. There's something missing here. Oh, no, that's his head. That. And I'm going to turn this button upside down. I want the gold like that. I don't know if that's right side up or upside down. So all these different little buttons here like this. And then I'm going to use these little stones to create the antenna. I have to maybe move that down a little bit. But this is what I'm going for. And then the stones for, oh, because there's a lot of layers to this, and it's just wood, although you can do this on the fly. When you're whoopsie, when you're limited on some of the supplies, like the buttons, if this is all I have in this size, I'm kind of stuck to making sure I dry fit, so I don't make it and it doesn't work out, then I can't peel it off. But that's what I'm going for this piece. So some alternatives, you can use pebbles for this. Pebbles, cut out some cardboard. You can even take some of this cardboard, cut it out for some alternatives, for some shapes. That would be a nice project. Basically the whole piece could be done out of cardboard and you just have to paint it. Okay, so let's put that aside and put that aside. And then little stones. So what I'm going to do first is obviously the stuff that takes the longest to dry. I'm going to gesso this first. Now the gesso is basically just to hold some of these paper pieces together. This is new gesso. It's the gesso here. And I'm going to grab my bristle brush. So all I'm going to do is just take the gesso, and especially where there's little loose pieces and where I have to have a lot of collage on there, I'm going to reinforce it with the gesso. And this will also help the paint stick to the gesso and not just get sucked into the cardboard. And we all know what happens when cardboard gets really, really wet, which is why I'm using a dry brush. Use whatever method is your favorite. So whoopsie, there's a little stone in there. So this project, other than me doing it with all this mixed media gold, you can, like I said, you can do it with anything. So what else could you use? Let's get a conversation going on in the comments below what you could use as alternatives. So we've got the buttons. So we already talked about that you could use the pebbles. What else could you use? Cardboard cutouts. What else? Cutouts really of anything. See, this is a stringy piece of paper here. And just put that in there. And I'm going to try not to edit out a lot of these steps. That way, if you're new to mixed media, that you're going to understand why I did it. So, see? Oh, that's a lot of white. Okay, so I'm going to let that sit for a little bit. That brush could go in water, which I didn't fill up. My bucket's empty. Ever have that happen where you've been going to do something, you forgot the water? Well, I'm filming, so I'm not going to run into the bathroom to get some water. So I'm going to take a baby wipe. I'm going to fold it over and put that in there, fold that over, and then just wrap it around. And that'll just help it stay damp till I can pause the video. So let's move that to the side. And I'm going to grab a small brush. Ooh. I make an awful lot of noises when I'm painting, don't I? Ah! Her paw's stuck in the drapes. She's giving herself a bath. Violet. So I'm going to take the violet and I'm going to go over the stone. I'm not sure, like I said, I'm not sure if this is going to work to create that beautiful dragonfly interference. I'll have to see. And these stones I did a little clean with rubbing alcohol just to get rid of anything that was on it. So that's that one. Now I got to do the green. And I'll just use that. Want to get that translucence in there, which I think is going to be really pretty. If you don't like the look of transparent glass, then just paint the bottom or just don't use glass. Well, that was a waste. I'm gonna have to put that back in there. All right, so that takes care of that. What else do I need to do? I'm going to be painting some of that. Let's put a little bit of what? Let me think of this for a second. Some metallic. Bring up some of this. What happens if we mix interference with the gold? Let's try. I don't know what'll happen. So I'm just gonna, just on the top edge, I just want just a little bit of something. Not sure how this will look. Ooh, that's too much. That's too much. Let's do it on the back side. Now she's up. Okay, I have to. My biggest fear is her jumping on the table when I've got this much stuff on there. You guys have cats that do that? Jump on your table? How do you get around that? Like, what do you do? Okay. I just want to use that up. This will also help the fibers to stick together. I'll use the interference just to get the fibers to stick together. I don't know. We'll see. Got lots of these little bags, so if I don't like the look, then I can always get something else. Okie dokie smoky. Now we wait for everything to dry. Okay, everything's relatively dry. Oh, I'm about to get, what do you think of this? My homage to dragonflies. Joe found this for me at Terra. Isn't it beautiful? It's big, but I love it. He initially thought, can you use this in art? No way. This is like handcrafted from a local artist. So, okay. And the interference, it did work. I can see some lines from the paint, so I'm not going to worry about that. I want to also give you a little tip. You know these little jars of gesso that you have, and I know you guys have tips of plastic and Vaseline and all that stuff. When you use gesso, or yeah, actually anything in a jar, you're going to have dried bits on the side. Those dried bits, take a palette knife, scrape it around like this, and put it on your palette paper. It makes great texture. It's free texture. You don't have to buy special texture products for that. All right, so I've got my paint on there. So I've got my phthalo blue, my phthalo green. I've got some titanium white. I'm going to be using some gesso if the paint isn't quite thick enough. And I've got my brush and my squeaky chair. Squeaky chair. Oh, putting some text would have been nice back there for as well if I had something that said dragonfly. That would have been nice. Let's go with a little bit of cerulean. Let's get that started. So I'm going to start with equal parts of phthalo blue and phthalo green, and I'm going to just go on the side here, pull in some white. I like just trying to start with roughly equal parts, that way I can shift it either way. You can do it any way you want. And this is going to be not enough paint. You don't have enough paint. All right, so let's just get that, put some of that around, then take a little bit of the dark without cleaning the brush, and pick up a bit more, some of the green. By keeping it with the same color family, it's naturally going to be cohesive. And I want to darken up the edges. See, I didn't make enough. A bit of white in there. So I'm just using a little bit of pressure on the edge and then just lifting up as I work down. And by, you can pick up a little bit of more blue, a little bit more green. It doesn't matter. Okay. And I was thinking about just edging this with like a transparent red iron oxide, but I think I like the blue better. When I was younger, I hated anything teal. I didn't like it at all. Let's get a bit more blue over here. One of the rare moments when you can use phthalo blue pure like this. Is when you mix it with phthalo green. And it just depends how intense that you want this. That's completely up to you. Use whatever colors you want. I want this to be a statement piece. Now the burlap's going to be there, but I don't know if there's going to be any transparency, so actually I like that. And if you happen to put too much of paint on something, you can just go back over once it's dry with a little bit of white. But it makes for a really nice, pretty color. I like that. All right. I didn't need the gesso. That's going to have to go back in the container. All right. So that's going to have to dry now. And yeah, so I'm going to let that dry, put the gesso back in the container. Oh, you know what else you could have done if you didn't have the burlap is the gesso part with all that, the dried pieces in it. Use a palette knife and scrape that on top, and that would have made extra texture as well. So if I just did this, let's see, I'll use this for something else. So let's do that. This is going to be a long video, I think. But I want to give you guys as many options as possible, because what I'm hearing out there is people saying, well, I love mixed media, but I can't afford the pieces. It's not about buying the latest and greatest thing. To me, it's about using what you have. Yeah, and it's good for the economy when you're supporting, the companies that are making all this mixed media stuff. If I had to grant you guys a wish, I would wish that you guys would spend the money on good paint, quality paint, with a limited palette. That way you can use only 11 colors and then mix thousands out of that instead of having 300 paints. I don't know, it's not good for the economy, but it is what it is. Okay, so I can take this textured gesso, and it's got a crusty feel to it because of all the stuff that's inside the dried bits. So you can fill it up almost like a texture paste. And right here, I'll put this right there, nice and thick. And this is stuff that I typically would have thrown out. Oh, bad me. Oh, the kids are outside. Do you know what one of them said to me? I'll let that sit for a sec. When he asked, he's 7. He said, he goes, Jill, he can't pronounce my name. Jill, he goes, what are you doing this weekend? Because I know what he wanted, because we have a really, really big hose, and I spray them with water when it's really hot. And I said, oh, I'm working this weekend. He goes to me, he goes, Jill, he goes, you're too old to have a summer job. Oh, so cute. Oh, God, love the kids. Oh, my God. But anyways, all right, so that's what you can do with the gesso, is just to let it, like that, and just to create that extra texture. So we'll see what that's going to be like when I'm finished this. I'll show you, and then we'll see if it's dry. All right, so I'm going to give this about another 5 minutes to dry, and then we'll start putting everything together. Okay, it's getting hot. I gotta get going on this. All right, so I did a couple of different versions of dry fitting, and I keep thinking I don't want to use the burlap, but I'm kind of liking that, but it does need a little bit of something. So I figured this for my L-shaped composition, so I'm going to work with that. All right, so I'm going to leave these attached like that. So I'm going to use my matte medium, and I'm just going to get a good chunk in there. And I got some of my liquid glass. I used a palette knife to scrape it out. I'm not going to put these down too heavy. So I want to be able to move them around. You can use any glue for this. Okay, so let's see. I want everything overlapped. And this matte medium will hold everything down just beautifully. All right, takes care of that. Okay, so I'm gonna what? Okay, let me dry fit the body. Now you guys can always just fast forward to go to where it's finished. I want to work through the process, especially if you're new to mixed media, to show you my process. That's the best part, just documenting the process and just instead of just the finished piece. The beads are going to give me trouble. I was thinking about just using wire. Maybe, whoops. That may be what I should do. So I'm thinking of that. That's what I'm thinking. What do you think? And then the beads. Yeah, I'm gonna do the beads last because I'm thinking I'm gonna switch to wire. I should be using my cruddy brushes. So I'm gonna take the liquid glass, just roll it and put it there without pressing down. Liquid glass is just what it says. It just dries to a glassy finish. Love that stuff. And it holds its shape. So if you were to put it on the substrate, it would actually just hold its shape like a dot. It's great for dimension. Which is the bottom? This one's the bottom. So I'm putting a lot on there, and it will just sit, and it'll just stay there. Wish I had a better button than this. I don't like the gold. I actually might put a little, let's do that. Put a little bead on the end. These little beads have a flat side and a pointy side. I want to take the flat side if I can get it. These are not the right tweezers for this. Where are my tweezers? Shoot. There we go. And then this part here. Now this I'm going to put even coverage because it's going through that burlap. It'll dry clear. I'm going to put more on this end here so it'll build a little bit of height on that. I'm not going to have enough. There. You guys like dragonflies? We don't have very many. You know one thing that's sad I haven't seen? Bees. Well, I'm the one bee that was flying out my window a few little while ago. I did a video on that. Yeah, they're like almost non-existent. Oh, I found something even better. So I've got these from the dollar store, these little butterfly things, and this one's broken, but I cut on the other one the pieces off, and I put it right underneath. I took the antenna from that, which is kind of nice. So I'm just gonna put that in there. I hope this comes in this week. Where I live, it's don't have access to a lot of stuff, and Michael's here is a pretty sucky store. There we go. I don't know if these would add anything. These are really pretty. These are really pretty. I don't know if they would add anything though. Question I get asked a lot is, how do you know when to stop? Well, only you'll know. Oh, I like that. Only you'll know when to stop. When you're looking for stuff to put in, then it's time to stop. Little mixed media piece. So other than really the only thing that I bought, the glass and the buttons. The glass I picked up at Michael's. It was sea glass. The buttons I picked up between the dollar store, Lens Mills, anywhere. I don't buy retail buttons at retail price. You buy them in bulk. Lens Mill has a big bucket. You just, whatever you get into a full container, you just pay for the container. And it's really cheap. But dollar store, I go there about once a month just for the buttons, and because they're always bringing something in new. But when you find something you like, get it, because you may not be able to get it later on. But that's it. So I'm pretty happy with this. I kind of like the way this turned out, except that didn't stick, so I'll leave that. Oh, let's tie in the tail. See, I'm going to keep going with this. Let's tie in the tail. There we go. And now it makes sense. So that ties in the yellow from the antenna to the yellow in the tail. Alrighty. So, question for you guys. Have you ever created any art with dragonflies? Like, do you have dragonfly jewelry? Do you have dragonfly wallpaper? Like, do you have anything dragonfly related in your home, or have you created artwork with dragonflies? I would love to see pictures of what you've done, because I love dragonflies. So in the description below, link to the community, post your pictures there. And yeah, so this is going to take a couple days to dry, but look at that interference. That worked out really, really well. All right. So I hope that you enjoyed this project and that you'll give this a shot using alternative pieces, and share in the comments below as well different alternatives that you could use to create this artwork. And until I see you in the next video, stay inspired.